So here I am talking about All In my filthy All In t-shirt, like the dirty mark that I am. But I think this is a serious question. I think we need to ask the question, put this question out there into the universe, and that is All In Texas the most important AEW event of all time? Hello and welcome to FTTR, I'm Hugh McQuaid, and today we are talking about AEW All In Texas. In particular, we are talking about the conversation, the talking point that is this the most important AEW show of all time. Now, there's a lot of different criteria when we talk about important. You can talk about viewership, you can talk about attendance. I'm just going off my own sort of thought process of is this the most important show and how I feel about that. There's a lot of different criteria you can use. I'm using my own internal metrics in my own head to justify it. Now, before we dive into it, before we answer the question, please subscribe, please like this video, please comment your thoughts down below, and I'll try and reply to every single one of them as we dive into this. Starting with the history. We got to talk about the history of AEW and what would be considered some of their most important shows of all time. You've obviously got Double or Nothing. You've obviously got the first Dynamite, but I think with them being the first ones, they obviously needed to be. They are incredibly important. They are incredibly fundamental to the survival of AEW. If those shows didn't hit, we probably wouldn't be talking about AEW today. So they are incredibly important, but there is an asterisk that they are the first one. And the first one, you could always argue, is the one that sort of sets the precedent. It can always be considered the first one. It's always like, I don't know, the first Doctor will always be William Hartnell. He's the one who, he shaped the character into what we know today 50 years later. It'll always be Sean Connery as James Bond. You know what I mean. Following on from that, in terms of importance, the next one you've probably got to look at is All In. Wembley 2023. That is... yeah, it's arguably the biggest, well, it is the biggest show they've ever done. That first Wembley, it is incredibly important in sort of staking a claim to the wrestling world and putting a flag on the moon that this is one of the promotions that is here to stay. The massive attendance here in the UK. I think that is probably the second most important AEW show that they've put on. Aside from the first ones, I think All In 2023, incredibly important. All Out, I think, All Out 2022? All Out 2022, I think you could talk about with the debuts of Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole and CM Punk's in-ring debut. However, the lofty expectations there, we all hoped it'd be a banger of a show. It was a banger of a show, and we all thought these massive things were going to happen. But in terms of importance, that I'd say that's more significant. That kind of marked like a peak for AEW, but I don't think it was their most important show. All In Texas, I think, is incredibly important for the promotion because of where we're at in the landscape. You are just getting this momentum back. The phrase restore the feeling has been thrown around a lot, and AEW, I think since the start of 2025, have been doing that. They have been taking great steps in their storytelling, in their in-ring work, everything to put some pieces into place so that they can restore the feeling. Now, you have had a big Death Rider shaped cloud over the promotion, but I think they're reaching a point now where it's clicking. I think we're more on board with the Death Riders now. Maybe it's because we can see almost an end point. We can see where the journey's going, that we feel a little bit more accepting of the Death Riders and what they're doing. But leading to All In Texas with Hangman Page as the main character looking to vanquish the evil of Jon Moxley, I think it's the most important show. I really do. I think the most important thing about the show is that it hits. If this show is bad, then I think a lot of the goodwill towards AEW may dissipate because they are sort of like, riding a wave of momentum of good solid episodes of Dynamite, good episodes of Collision, great pay-per-views, and just slowly building their way to All In Texas. You got just the blueprint there. It's right there. Hangman Page vanquishing this evil, vanquishing his personal demons and winning the AEW World title. I think he has to win. I think he has to win. If Jon Moxley wins, particularly if it is the main event, and the air, even though it's an open air stadium, I think, gets sucked out of the arena, out of the stadium, I think that is a big mistake. I think it's a big mistake to not crown Hangman Page as the world champion here, because it just makes sense. It makes sense. We see the story, we see where it's going, satisfying payoff, everyone will be happy. Yes, you can put it on hold for Darby. I think it's way more interesting if Darby Allin comes back and helps Hangman Page win the title. Say it's a Texas death match, you've had Will come down, you've had Swerve come down, Darby comes down to sort of fight off the Death Riders as well, and they all collectively surround the ring and help him beat Jon Moxley as Hangman wins the belt. It makes all the sense in the world. You put on a bad show here, or you have Mox win, I think a lot of the fan sentiment, a lot of the goodwill will just evaporate, because we've been on this journey. You've taken us to this high. Everyone loved Double or Nothing. Double or Nothing is like one of the most highly rated shows that I can remember in the past God knows how long. Everyone loves Double or Nothing. Everyone loves Dynasty, apart from the ending. Everyone loves Revolution, apart from the ending. If you can have a great ending to All In Texas, Hangman Page holding the world title, I think you're just going to get more eyes on your product. You're going to get more eyes. You're going to get great word of mouth. Everyone will be so satisfied with how you have paid off the story that everyone will just be engaged again in AEW, and will sort of, this is the closest it's felt to that peak of AEW in 2022, where it felt like everyone, the entire wrestling world, was talking about AEW. I think All In Texas is the pivotal point of that. I think that is the show that will make or break this current iteration of AEW. If they fumble it creatively, if there's, any sort of creative mishap with this show, I think it's going to be under a microscope, because you've got not just that, you've got the WWE counter programming homing in on this show, with them arranging 3 premium live events around it, and AEW just sat there in the middle looking to capitalize on the momentum that they've built. You've also got to take into account that maybe Moxley versus Hangman isn't the main event. Maybe you have the first AEW women's main event in a stadium, and you have Mercedes Moné versus Toni Storm. That could also be a great ending to the show. Like, it really, really could. There is so much here. Just sort of riding on this. They're financially fine. Everything's financially fine. But I think in the eyes of fans, if All In doesn't hit, I think this great year that AEW's had doesn't get put down the drain, but maybe it's in the gutter. Maybe it's there in the gutter. People are just like, we were hoping for this. We were hoping so much for this to deliver. And yeah, I think it's a must-win scenario. I think they're up to the challenge. I think the show will be awesome. And I do think currently the top 3 most important shows AEW's put on, aside from their original ones: All In 2023, the first Forbidden Door, because big crossover event, big sort of draw from the New Japan audience, sort of getting them invested in New Japan stars, getting a US audience invested in New Japan stars. That was a tall task. Everyone was excited about it, and it delivered. And I think this is the most important AEW show. I really do. I think All In Texas is an incredibly important show for AEW. And yeah, this is going to be a wild, wild ride. A wild 7 weeks to reach All In Texas. And yeah, I'm incredibly hyped for it. But I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you make of my take? Do you think this is the most important AEW show that has ever happened? Let me know, and I'll try to reply to every single one of them. Thank you all ever so much for your support, and have a nice day.